It's Retro News Friday, and in today's news, we're going to talk about Mad Magazine shutting down after 67 years of publishing. Also, there is a Cobra Kai comic book about Johnny Lawrence that is coming out, and Gremlins is getting an animated TV series. And we have lots more retro news to talk about, so don't turn that dial. What up to my peoples, and welcome to Retro Crunch, your nostalgia channel where we talk about current news that relates to all things retro. And to start off the retro news, I want to talk about this Gremlins news that just came out about Warner Media developing a Gremlins animated series. When I first heard this, I was like, heck yeah. Then I remembered that in the last few months, we've been getting a lot of news like this when studios don't want to make a live action movie, or they just can't get traction for one. I reported not too long ago about a few that are being turned into animated movie or TV shows like Flash Gordon, Star Trek, Blade Runner, and Altered Carbon. So I'm not surprised that they decided to go this route. But according to Variety.com, the potential series is said to be a period piece where it's going to follow Mr. Wing, who's a young man that goes on an adventure with his friend and Mogwai, Gizmo. You might remember him as the guy who originally sold Gizmo to Billy in the movie Gremlins. I'm cool with this news since it's going to be fun to see Gizmo back on TV. I just hope that this series isn't being made because Warner Brothers just doesn't want to plan out a Gremlins 3. What do you think about turning a blockbuster movie like Gremlins into an animated series? And is there any that you could think of from the 80s that you would like them to animate now? I would really like to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments down below. We talk a lot about reboots from the 70s, 80s, and 90s on this channel. And this next story is really big for reboot news. Warner Brothers, they've reported that they are looking to reboot some of the comedy TV shows from, I don't know if you remember the TGIF television block that was hugely popular from 1989 to around 2000. Well, some of the shows like Perfect Strangers and Family Matters and Step by Step, they're all being considered for this reboot at this time. And Warner Brothers is looking to launch its own streaming service to compete with Netflix and Amazon. And we're already hearing about shows like Friends and Seinfeld that are possibly moving over to Warner when they do go live with this streaming service. So creating a lineup of reboots is actually a really good idea for Warner Brothers to do to jump into the market with basically a handful of shows that'll most likely do pretty well. And once we get more news on what's going on with these reboots, I'll be sure to let you guys know down below, so stay tuned. And I have a few more stories that I want to mention that are related to the movie news before we move on to the next topic. So according to MovieWeb.com, Grace Jones was supposed to reprise her role as Mayday, or at least she was going to be in the James Bond 25th movie, but that turned out not to happen. I guess Grace Jones decided that the role that she was going to be playing was going to be too small, so she backed out. Or at least that's the word on the street. Then we have a new trailer for the upcoming movie about the life and creator of the famous DeLorean car, John DeLorean. The movie Driven is going to hit theaters on August 16th, 2019. And interestingly enough, another documentary biopic about John DeLorean was actually released earlier this year, and it was called Framing John DeLorean. And it featured Alex Baldwin as the famed automotive figure. I'll link to both of those down below. And if you didn't know, there's a RoboCop movie coming out called RoboCop Returns, and they're going to be using a RoboCop suit that looks like the one from the original 1987 RoboCop movie. And then moving on to just a little bit of retro comic book news. YouTube's Cobra Kai series is getting the comic book treatment, and it's going to be called Cobra Kai, The Karate Kid Saga Continues. It's going to start with a 4-part story retelling of the events of the original 1984 movie from the point of view of Johnny Lawrence. And he was the villain from the original Karate Kid movie, if you don't remember. And then for the Walking Dead comic book fans, the comic book series has finally ended, and I am not going to spoil what is in this issue 193, but The Walking Dead is really dead. And the same thing goes for Mad Magazine. It looks like Mad is going to be closing their doors after 67 years of making fun of TV, movies, and pop culture. They still may go to the direct markets with their books, but I have not been able to confirm that yet. I actually grew up on Mad Magazine. I love them so much. I still collect them. I think I have 2 more issues before the whole series is going to end. So it's going to be a disappointment not to be able to read them anymore. And in some other retro news, there is a cool cassette player that has Bluetooth wireless that's on Kickstarter right now. It looks really, really cool. And I'll link to that because I think it's pretty interesting. Also, Pizza Hut is actually going back to their old logo. So I thought that was kind of interesting news to report to you guys. And that is all your retro news for the week. Be sure to check out our next video that is right over there. I will catch you on the flip side. And remember, guys, if it ain't retro, it ain't worth watching.